Okay, well, welcome again, everyone. If you're just tuning in for the second day and the second speaker of our inaugural, I guess it would be, Leiden Virtual Speaker Series. We are really excited. We had a great response yesterday to Jamie Cassup's talk yesterday. And today, equally excited to welcome a really good friend of mine, a good friend to Leiden, Rusul, Alrubail. She will be speaking with us today. And just a little bit about Rusul before she gets started. Rusul has spent time teaching high school and college. She's published several books, several books and articles, a lot around education, and has really expanded beyond that. She recently gave a TEDx talk in the last couple of years. And just over the last year and a half, her and her husband have opened the Parkdale Innovation Center in Toronto. And they're doing some really, really exciting community work there in Toronto around innovation. And we are very, very excited to have her join us again today, or here today, to be the next speaker in our virtual speaker series. So Rusul, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to you if you are ready.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Markey. I'm used to calling Mr. Markey Jason. I'm so glad to be here today. I'm hoping that those of you who are watching will be able to find something valuable in the story that I have to share today. But I think this also gives an opportunity for us to come together and connect in ways that we don't usually connect, and this is a very scary time. I'm hoping that everyone is staying safe, that you are at home, that you're practicing social distancing, but most importantly also just staying safe and being around your family and those support systems that are around you. I wanted to thank Mr. Markey for this opportunity. Him and I had the pleasure of meeting 2 years ago when I visited Chicago, and I ran an equity workshop at Leiden High School, which was such a privilege to be part of. And I met some of your teachers. I'm not sure if some of them are listening today, so if you are, hi, and I hope you're doing well. So I just wanted to share a little bit about my background and how I'm kind of this whole thing, this crisis, it is a crisis, and how I related it to my past, but also some of the strategies that I'm hoping you would find useful to take away today. This crisis has impacted the whole world. This is a global crisis. Obviously, we have changed our work habits, we've changed our school habits. My kids are no longer in school, they're sitting at home, and I have 2 kids, so there are 2 girls, and they miss their friends a lot. We're trying to get into a new routine of, learning at home, but it's not easy. It's not easy for myself, it's not easy for them, it's not easy for you guys. And when this whole thing happened about 2 weeks ago, I mean, it started way back in December, and I heard a lot of people in the community, especially actually my husband, he said, you know what, we should start stocking up on some kind of like canned foods. And, I thought, we don't need to do that. And then we started noticing that people are doing it in February, and, the government started taking it seriously in the beginning of March. So it really took me back to my days, my childhood days when I was back home from Iraq. So I'm from Iraq originally, and I was born in Iraq, and I grew up there. Well, half of my childhood, I grew up there. So I left, by the time I left, I was 10 years old. And during the time that I was between the age of 6 and 9, during that whole time, war was happening. So the Gulf War was happening. If you guys want to take a look at what the Gulf War is and what happened, you can just Google it, and it's on Wikipedia, and it'll show you some history. Now, I grew up during that time, and when the war happened, we obviously couldn't go to school anymore. So they're like, that's it, like closing schools, no one's allowed to walk out on the streets. People started stocking up on food and groceries, and It took me back to those days when my grandpa would go out and he would line up for literally hours on end to bring back home bags of rice and lentils. Back then, like the heating was also really relying on oil, so he would line up on the streets to get a gallon of oil so that we could put it in the heaters so we could stay warm. It was during the winter. And, we use lanterns to light the lanterns as well because there's no electricity. And, nobody goes out on the street. And it was just a very, very terrifying time. So this was obviously my memory as a child. I'm sure my mom and my aunts and those who were around me as adults probably remember it a little bit differently, but they all remember it with that fear, the fear, the uncertainty, and fear for your own safety. And so, the past few weeks, I've been kind of feeling a little bit of the same uncertainty, like fearing for safety, fearing for my family, worrying about like, oh, do we have enough food in the house? How do we go and do shopping? And so it took me a while, actually like 2 weeks, for me to get adjusted to this new routine. Now, while this whole thing is happening, we know this is temporary, obviously. We know this is not going to last forever, I'm hoping. But it will take some time. So I want to share with you guys some tips and strategies on how you can move forward. If you're still stuck in that kind of uncertainty phase, you're like, what is this? I want to go back to school. I want to go see my friends. I want everything to go back to normal. I'm hoping some of these strategies would help you to kind of get out of that. So the first thing that actually 2 weeks ago, I was stuck in this rut. And, my mindset was like, I felt like I was blocked. I couldn't work from home. I couldn't write emails. I couldn't really function properly. And so one of the first tips that I have for you guys is to work on changing that mindset. So seize the moment, because while this is a scary time, it's uncertain, we actually never get a moment to be like, you know what, sit at home and just wait for a bit, right? So I encourage you to think from that mindset. Seize the moment. There's no time like the present. So what does that mean? Have you ever maybe wanted to work on a project, or you wanted to start a podcast, or you wanted to build your own website? I would encourage you to start thinking about that now. This is an opportunity for you to actually start planning on how to do this project. So that's my number one tip, is that you seize the moment. And it takes a lot of effort for us to change our mindset. It often doesn't come easy. So do you know that little voice in our head that always talks to us? We all have this voice inside our head that says stuff. So it's like, oh, I can't do that. Or what am I doing? Or like, before I came on this Google Hangout, I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to share with these students and teachers? I have nothing important to say. So that voice is always playing in the back of our head. Now, it's important to hear what that voice is saying, but also change that perspective. No, I actually have something important to say. I actually have something important to do and work on, and I wanna work on it. I'm gonna make that time to work on it. It's really hard, but practicing changing that perspective is so important right now. So my next strategy that I think would be helpful with that is organizing your headspace. So what's in your head? You might have a lot of ideas, thoughts, worries, stresses. Try to organize that. I think sometimes it helps for you to think about long term. So I know 6 months is not really long term, but I think for students it is quite a bit of long term. So think 6 months from now. Plan out whatever it is that you like to plan out, your new schedule, your new routine, 6 months out. And I think that always helps us, because we're thinking, hey, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna get into this new mindset and everything, but I'm gonna work on this for the next 6 months. This is how it's gonna be. This is how life is gonna be for the next 6 months. And that helps to ease our mind, and it helps us to breathe a little. So knowing that, you know what, this isn't like tomorrow or the week after, but you're actually planning for the next 6 months, I think it should give you some kind of comfort. Next is organizing your physical environment. I can't stress enough how much it's important for you to find an environment in your home where you're currently staying and make it as comfy as possible, as cozy as possible, and something that you actually like to enjoy sitting at and doing some work or studying or reading a book or listening to music or podcasts, whatever it is that you decide to do. Now, it's really hard sometimes. That might be, especially if you have a lot of people who live with you or a lot of siblings who like to, take over. I remember when I used to be a teenager, my sister and I shared a room, and it was really hard to have my own space. But I'm like, you know what? My bed and this desk is mine, so stay away from it. So it's really helpful to find the physical space where you feel comfortable and safe in, and just make it your own. Lately, I'm not working from my bedroom because for me, bedroom signals like it's sleep time. It's time to like watch Netflix or go on my iPad and watch like The Walking Dead, something like that. It doesn't signal for me productivity. So I recently, right now, I'm talking to you guys from my living room. I set up my dining table where it's a working environment where I feel like, you know what, like, yes, we're going to eat at it, but after we clean it up, it's my desk and I'm sitting here and I'm going to work. So that always helps, having a physical environment where you're going to go and actually get things done. My next tip is choosing a goal. So we could have a lot of different goals, which is really great, but I think sometimes it really helps if your goal is 1 or 2 goals, like something that you want to complete over the next 6 months. What is it? Maybe I want to start a podcast. Maybe I want to finish 2 episodes recording with my friends. And so have that goal in mind. And I think setting a goal gives you that purpose to work towards. It really, really helps. And then the last thing I think is really important is planning out your schedule. So it took me 2 weeks to do this. And, I had to figure it out on my own. And I felt like, how am I going to start working? And, the kids are around and it's so noisy and I have to take care of their needs and their learning at home. So I sat down, after I breathed a little and cleared that headspace and found my space, I sat down and I looked at my calendar and I said, you know what? I think my optimal time to do work is going to be from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. So 3 hours in the morning. And I know that most of you, probably not a lot of you, like to wake up in the morning, but I'm such a morning person. So I wake up and I shower, I go get my coffee, and I sit down in my space and I listen to the birds sing. I open up the window and I hear the robins and I'm like, yes, I'm motivated to do this. So I set my alarm clock for 6 a.m. And it's scheduled from Monday to Friday. I know right now, like the days of the weeks look like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like there's no difference, right? But it's important for you to schedule your time so that you don't feel like the days are just getting by and you actually, you have no idea what day it is today. You could get lost in this way. So setting a schedule where you plan that you're going to study during those hours or you're going to take a break for those hours, I think is so important. And speaking of taking a break, it's so important to also remember to schedule lunch, have a snack, drink water. I'm finding that now that I'm at home more, it's actually helping me to have a lot of more healthy eating habits. So I used to be at work and I hardly drank water. I would have like 1 bottle of water and that's it. But now I'm constantly like making tea, taking breaks, having snacks. So it's a lot easier that way. And then the last thing I want to encourage you guys to do is taking action. So you plan all of this out and you have a schedule and all of that. Now it's time to actually do it. So that's also the hard part is that, when I set up my schedule and I planned everything in my headspace and my desk, now 6 a.m. the alarm came and I'm like, oh my God, I have to wake up at 6 a.m. now. It's like, nobody's forcing me to do this, but I'm kind of forcing myself to do it because I feel like if I don't, then I'm going to be stuck in that mindset that I was in 2 weeks ago, where I'm like, honestly, so depressed. I don't, I want my life back. I want to go back to the center. I miss my members. I miss seeing people. I miss running classes face to face. I miss all of that. And so, I had a good cry. I think, I go to the bathroom and cry, or at night, and I'm like, the day is over and I got nothing done, and I would just bawl my eyes out. So I don't want to be going back to 2 weeks ago. I want to be in the now, and in that new kind of structure mindset. So I'm like, that's it. It's time to actually wake up. It's 6 a.m. Get up and let's do this. So it's not easy, but it could be worse. Now, the important thing to also think about is your mental health. So with that being said, with all of the planning that I mentioned and all of the strategies, you have to do what works for you. I think that's so important to remember. At a time like this, it's really hard to guess how people deal with crisis, and everyone deals with it differently. And I want to stress the idea that, you know what, however you choose to deal with it is the right way for you. If you want to not do any of this and just kind of, let time pass by, that's totally fine as well. There's no judgment here. I think in a time of crisis, what's so important is that you find a good support system around you. So making sure to call your friends, to have Google Hangouts with them, and connecting with them over messages, email, and talk to your family or the people that live with you. Talk about these feelings. I think that is so important. I think that's all I have for you guys today. I hope I didn't really bore you. But I think Mr. Markey's taking some questions, so feel free to tweet him or send him an email if you have any questions to me today.
Thank you so much, Rusul. One of the things I think some of our seniors are thinking about right now, and I think you might have a unique perspective on, is, we talk a lot about them creating a plan. What are they going to do after high school, and really to have options, because we know so often people change their path as they move on. So can you maybe just give a few tips or talk from your own experience, because you've had some different paths that you've been on, both career-wise and in your own life, and how have you adapted to those changes? How have you went from being a teacher to a writer and author and doing those sorts of things and that sort of work, and then creating kind of your own organization, and maybe what skills have transferred, and how have you managed that?
So when I was a student in high school, I was kind of, set that I want to be a teacher, and that was my goal. I'm like, I want to be a teacher. My whole life, I've dreamed of becoming a teacher, and luckily I got that opportunity. So when I went to school, though, when I went to university, I started off studying a Bachelor of Psychology. And that wasn't really for me. I felt like psychology is really interesting, but I want to teach, I want to learn about other things. And so during my academic years, I've changed like 3 majors. I changed from psychology to child studies, and then I did English. Finally, I landed on English, and that was okay. I think the only thing that I would have changed back then is actually telling myself it's okay to do that, because I felt kind of weird and also bad for having to keep switching. A lot of the times, like, our parents don't encourage us, like, it's okay for you to change your mind, even if you studied a whole year of psychology and you're like done with it. That's totally fine. You can change majors. So I would encourage to keep an open mind, that sometimes, you have a plan in mind, but it's okay to divert from that plan. And I think that helped me to deal with a lot of the changes that happened in my career. Even after I studied, and then I was teaching. Teaching was for me. I discovered, yes, this is my calling. But life happens and change happens. I had 2 kids, and now being a contract faculty no longer works for my family. And so I had to adapt and do something that I still feel passionate about, but something that works for me. And I think what we always need to hear is, that's okay. It's totally fine to do that, but you know, having that affirmation, I think, is so important.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really loved the message today and all of the real kind of concrete ideas that you gave our students from your own experience and things I know that they can use. So thank you for your time today, Rusul. We'll give you a virtual applause. I'm sure we'll see later.
Thank you so
And
much.
we'll share the video of this talk with our students and staff so they can watch it at another time if they couldn't join us live. But we
Thank you
really,
so much
really
for having
appreciate
me.
you continuing to be a friend of Leiden. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care.
Bye, guys. Take care.